Welcome back to the Creating Resilience video series. This is the 11th video in the series. Today we're going to move to another root in the caring, connected community system of our collective well-being tree, and we're going to talk about response. How do we respond when other people are reacting? What we really want to be able to do is to meet their needs and support regulation. So it goes back to our brain as a car, and what are the needs in different parts of that car, the safety, the connection, and the meaning. Our response, what we really want to be able to do is to understand that beneath every behavior, there's a feeling. I want you to remember that every behavior is communication. Every single thing we do actually is communicating something to ourselves or to others. And beneath that behavior, there is often an emotion, a feeling. And if we understand that beneath that feeling, there is a need, think about the needs in the back of the car. When we meet that need, rather than focusing on the behavior, what we're doing is we're beginning to deal with the cause, not just the symptom. We go back and we think about how emotions and fears can either increase or decrease our heart rate, our breathing, our thoughts, and our muscle tension, and how we're going to use regulation with ourselves and now with others to shift and change that. So it might be breathing and movement that we use with others. But when we're in the trunk of the car, we want to think about that need for safety. So how do we create that need for safety? Well, we do it through something called grounding, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And we can also do it through breathing and movement, just like we did with ourselves in caregiver reflection and regulation. We can do it with others. If somebody's in their backseat, their need then is connection. So we want to use attunement, what we just talked about in the previous video. We want to be able to attune to them and validate their emotion and perhaps co-regulate using breathing or movement or something else. If they're in their front seat, when we respond to them, their need is meaning. And that's when they do want to talk. That might be when they want to problem solve or when they want to get creative. So we're going to start with safety, and we're going to talk about grounding today. Grounding is really very important because what it means is that we're trying to bring people back to the present moment. When somebody is in their trunk, often what they are doing is reliving something that the environment is reminding them about. It's a trigger. So maybe they smell something or they see something that reminds them of something that was very scary in the past. The beginning of the video series, I talked about how I had gotten in a car wreck, and when I drove past that place, I knew that my heart started increasing and things like that, that I was reminded, my body remembered, this is where that accident happened. That accident was really scary. So when we're in our trunk, sometimes it's something that has just at that moment happened, but a lot of times it's reflecting back on things that have happened in our past, and we may not even be tying that together. Or we're anticipating something in the future. Right? Somebody yells at us, and in the past, when we've been yelled at, we've been hit. So somebody's yelling, and we're anticipating that we're going to get hit. Grounding means that we're really going to try to bring people into the present moment. And we do that through our 5 senses. Grounding really means that we focus on what can we see, feel, hear, smell, or taste. So I'm going to have you join into an activity with me now about grounding. And it's a great thing to maybe pause and do a couple of times a day or a couple times a week, just to keep yourself aware of your 5 senses. If you are in the backseat or somebody else's, you can very quickly ground them to these senses. The first one is just look around you and find 5 things that you can see. Do that right now. I'm going to too. Now think about 4 things you can feel. You might just do a quick body scan. What do you feel on your shoulders, on your waist, your knees, your feet? Now, if you have headphones on, this one might be hard, but think about 3 things you can hear. Now I want you to list 2 things you can smell. That encourages us to take a breath too. And think about 1 thing you can taste. Now, if somebody is in their chunk of their brain, the way you use grounding is you pick one of these senses and you work on that one sense. So, for example, we had a child in our classroom that would often become very, very agitated where he's running around the room throwing things, but he loved airplanes. And so sometimes when he very first was starting into that activity, we would go to the window and say, I think I see an airplane. Do you see an airplane? And he would immediately shift out of where he was thinking he was going in that trunk back to sight and do I see an airplane? I had a teacher tell me that she had a student that would get really angry and have explosive behavior in her classroom. And she noticed, taking us back to attunement, that before he would start to throw things, he would clench his fists really tightly. So since she noticed that, she jumped in with that at that point and did some grounding. And so the next time he did this, she went over to him and she said, touch your chest right here and feel your heart rate. How fast is your heart beating? And they'd done this a few times just as a whole class, just to ground themselves and feel their heartbeat and see what it was feeling like. So he did that. She said, is it beating really fast? He said, yes. And she said, well, let's do some of our breathing that we've been practicing to bring that heart rate down. Are you ready? You want to try some? And they did. She combined the grounding of touch and feel and the sense of that heart rate. She combined that with regulation of let's take some deep breaths and see if we can bring that heart rate down. She said it worked really, really well. Grounding is the way that we can respond to other people if they are in their chunk of their brain and we want to bring them back in to the present moment. This quote sums it up quite well. In times of pain, when the future is too terrifying to contemplate or the past is too painful to remember, I've learned to pay attention to right now. The precise moment I was in was always the only safe place for me. Especially for people that have experienced a lot of adversity or stress or trauma in their life, it's really important to understand how to help them ground themselves. And if you have experience, and it's really helpful. I ground myself often throughout the day. If I'm anticipating something in the future and starting to get anxious, I will just ground myself and think, you know what? I'm sitting right here, right now I'm safe, and take a deep breath. Your reflection question for today is when you are in the trunk, what helps you feel safe? And the action step is the next time you begin to feel yourself panic or worry, try grounding yourself and pay attention to your body's response when you turn inward and reflect and are aware of your 5 senses. Thank you for joining me. We will continue our journey on how to respond in the next video.